Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened. Never lend books, for no one ever returns them. The only books I have in my library are books that other folks have lent me. All changes, even the most longed for, have their melancholy, for what we leave behind us is a part of ourselves. We must die to one life before we can enter another. To accomplish great things we must not only act, but also dream, not only plan, but also believe. We have never heard the devil's side of the story. God wrote all the book. To know is nothing at all, to imagine is everything. To accomplish great things, we must dream as well as act. If we don't change, we don't grow. If we don't grow, we aren't really living. If the path be beautiful, let us not ask where it leads. In art as in love, instinct is enough. If 50 million people say a foolish thing, it is still a foolish thing. It is the certainty that they possess the truth that makes men cruel. The law, in its majestic equality, forbids rich and poor alike to sleep under bridges, to beg in the streets, and to steal their bread. The whole art of teaching is only the art of awakening the natural curiosity of the mind for the purpose of satisfying it afterwards. Of all sexual aberrations, chastity is the strangest. And education isn't how much you have committed to memory, or even how much you know. It's being able to differentiate between what you do know and what you don't. Stupidity is far more dangerous than evil, for evil takes a break from time to time, stupidity does not. To accomplish great things, we must not only act but also dream, not only plan, but also believe. It is human nature to think wisely and act in an absurd fashion. The law, in its majestic equality, forbids the rich as well as the poor to sleep under bridges, to beg in the streets, and to steal bread. Time deals gently only with those who take it gently. I prefer the errors of enthusiasm to the indifference of wisdom. When a thing has been said and said well, have no scruple. Take it and copy it. Wandering re-establishes the original harmony which once existed between man and the universe. The average man, who does not know what to do with his life, wants another one which will last forever. 9/10 of education is encouragement. A person is never happy except at the price of some ignorance. Man is so made that he can only find relaxation from one kind of labor by taking up another. Awaken people's curiosity. It is enough to open minds, do not overload them. Put there just a spark. The books that everybody admires are those that nobody reads. If 50 million people say a foolish thing, it is still a foolish thing. We chase dreams and embrace shadows. It is by acts and not by ideas that people live. It is good to collect things, but it is better to go on walks. For a man's life would become intolerable if he knew what was going to happen to him. He would be made aware of future evils, and would suffer their agonies in advance, while he would get no joy of present blessings since he would know how they would end. Ignorance is the necessary condition of human happiness, and it has to be admitted that on the whole mankind observes that condition well. We are almost entirely ignorant of ourselves, absolutely of others. In ignorance, we find our bliss; in illusions, our happiness. All the good writers of confessions, from Augustine onwards, are men who are still a little in love with their sins. Armenia is dying, but it will survive. The little blood that is left is precious blood that will give birth to a heroic generation. A nation that does not want to die, does not die. April 9, 1916, Sorbonne. Our passions are ourselves. Suffering, how divine it is, how misunderstood. We owe to it all that is good in us, all that gives value to life. We owe to it pity, we owe to it courage, we owe to it all the virtues. The wonder is, not that the field of stars is so vast, but that man has measured it. Without lies, humanity would perish of despair and boredom. People who have no weaknesses are terrible, there is no way of taking advantage of them. We do not know what to do with this short life, yet we yearn for another that will be eternal. A people living under the perpetual menace of war and invasion is very easy to govern. It demands no social reform. It does not haggle over expenditures for armaments and military equipment. It pays without discussion, it ruins itself, and that is an excellent thing for the syndicates of financiers and manufacturers for whom patriotic terrors are an abundant source of gain. For the majority of people, though they do not know what to do with this life, long for another that shall have no end. It is only the poor who are forbidden to beg. It is the certainty that they possess the truth that makes men cruel. Anatole France, novelist, essayist, Nobel laureate, 1844 to 1924. What can be more foolish than to think that all this rare fabric of heaven and earth could come by chance? 90% of education is encouragement. I sought out the laws which govern nature, solid or ethereal, and after much pondering I perceived that the universe had not been formed as its pretended creator would have us believe. I knew that all that exists, exists of itself and not by the caprice of Eva, that the world is itself its own creator and the spirit its own God. Henceforth I despised Eva for his imposture, and I hated him because he showed himself to be opposed to all that I found desirable and good, liberty, curiosity, doubt. There are forces, Lucius, infinitely more powerful than reason and science. What are they? Asked Cotta. Ignorance and folly, replied Aristeas. An education isn't how much you have committed to memory, or even how much you know. It's being able to differentiate between what you do know and what you don't. Dictionary: the universe in alphabetical order. Yet, every now and then, there would pass a young girl, slender, fair and desirable, arousing in young men a not ignoble desire to possess her, and stirring in old men regrets for ecstasy not seized and now forever past. As to the kind of truth one finds in books, it is a truth that enables us sometimes to discern what things are not, without ever enabling us to discover what they are. All changes, even the most longed for, must have their melancholy. Determination. To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream. Not only plan, but also believe. All changes, even the most longed for, have their melancholy, for what we leave behind us is a part of ourselves. We must die to one life before we can enter another. It is not customary to love what one has,